Welcome to True.
The Voynich Manuscript, the world's most uncrackable code, Chapter 1, The Discovery. In 1912, an American book dealer named Wilfred Voynich made a discovery that would consume scholars, cryptographers, and enthusiasts for over a century. While examining a collection of ancient manuscripts at the Villa Mondragone near Rome, he came across a peculiar volume that seemed to defy all logic. Bound in worn vellum and filled with elaborate illustrations and strange text, the book appeared to be some sort of medieval herbal or scientific treatise. Yet upon closer inspection, Voynich realized that neither he nor anyone else could read a single word of it. The manuscript consisted of approximately 240 pages, though evidence suggests some pages were lost over the centuries. Each page was covered in flowing script, written in an unknown alphabet, accompanied by detailed illustrations of plants, astronomical diagrams, human figures, and intricate cosmological designs. The writing system contained roughly 20 to 30 distinct characters, written from left to right in a continuous, confident hand that suggested the author knew exactly what they were communicating, even if no one else did. Voynich, an experienced rare book dealer with connections throughout the academic world, immediately recognized the manuscript's significance. He photographed the entire work and sent copies to leading scholars and cryptographers, hoping someone could unlock its secrets. The responses he received must have been both fascinating and frustrating. Everyone agreed the manuscript was remarkable, but no one could decipher it. Some suggested it was an elaborate cipher. Others proposed it might be written in an unknown or constructed language. A few skeptics even wondered if it was an elaborate hoax. The manuscript's provenance added to its mystique. Tucked inside was a letter dated 1665 from Johannes Marcus Marci, rector of Charles University in Prague, addressed to the renowned Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher. Marci wrote that the manuscript had belonged to Emperor Rudolf II of the Holy Roman Empire, who believed it to be the work of the English polymath Roger Bacon. Rudolf II, according to Marci, had paid 600 gold ducats for the manuscript, an astronomical sum that would be equivalent to tens of thousands of dollars today. This price alone suggested that people in the 17th century considered the manuscript extraordinarily valuable, though whether for its contents or its mystery remains unclear. The trail before Voynich's discovery grows murky. If the manuscript did indeed belong to Rudolf II, it would have been in Prague during one of the most intellectually vibrant periods in European history. Rudolf's court attracted alchemists, astronomers, artists, and scholars from across the continent. Men like Johannes Kepler and Tycho Brahe worked under his patronage. The emperor himself was deeply interested in the occult sciences, alchemy, and secret knowledge. In such an environment, a mysterious coded manuscript would have been a prized possession. From Prague, the manuscript apparently passed to Jacobus Hortycki de Tepanek, one of Rudolf's physicians, whose signature appears faintly on the first page, visible only under ultraviolet light. After his death, it somehow came into the possession of Marci, who sent it to Kircher, perhaps hoping the Jesuit scholar famous for his work on Egyptian hieroglyphics might crack the code. Kircher never succeeded, or if he did, he left no record of it. The manuscript then vanished into the Jesuit archives at the Collegium Romanum, where it remained hidden for more than 2 centuries until Voynich rediscovered it. Chapter 2. Physical Evidence and Carbon Dating. For decades after Voynich's discovery, scholars could only speculate about the manuscript's age. The watermarks in the paper provided some clues, matching patterns used in northern Italy during the early 15th century. However, watermark dating is imprecise, as paper could be stored for years before use. The vellum, the illustration style, and the general appearance of the manuscript all suggested a medieval or early Renaissance origin, but definitive proof remained elusive. Everything changed in 2009 when the University of Arizona conducted radiocarbon dating on 4 small samples of the manuscript's vellum. The results were illuminating and, in some ways, deepening the mystery. The tests dated the vellum to between 1404 and 1438 with 95% confidence. This finding had profound implications. It meant the manuscript was created in the early 15th century, making it older than most scholars had suspected. More significantly, it predated Wilfred Voynich by 5 centuries, effectively demolishing theories that the manuscript might be a Renaissance or early modern forgery. The carbon dating also complicated the attribution to Roger Bacon, who lived from 1214 to 1292. Unless someone had kept blank vellum for more than a century before using it, Bacon could not have been the author. While it's technically possible that blank pages could have been stored for decades, the probability is extremely low. Medieval vellum was expensive, time-consuming to produce, and too valuable to leave unused for extended periods. Each page required an entire animal hide, properly prepared through a lengthy process of soaking, scraping, and stretching. The physical characteristics of the manuscript reveal much about its creation. The vellum is of high quality, suggesting significant investment in materials. The ink, analyzed through various spectroscopic methods, appears to be carbon-based, typical of medieval manuscripts. The pigments used in the illustrations include standard medieval colors, various earth tones, greens derived from copper compounds, and blues that might come from azurite or another copper-based mineral. Nothing in the materials analysis suggests anything unusual or anachronistic for the proposed time period. The binding, however, is later, probably dating to the 19th century. This isn't unusual. Old manuscripts were often rebound as earlier bindings deteriorated. The current binding tells us nothing about the manuscript's original appearance, but does confirm that the pages we see today have been kept together as a single volume for at least 2 centuries. One fascinating physical detail is the manuscript's quire structure, how the pages are arranged and sewn together. Analysis shows that the current order of pages may not be original. Some sections seem out of sequence, and there's evidence that pages have been removed or lost. This scrambling complicates any attempt to read the manuscript as a continuous text. If it contains a message or story that flows from beginning to end, we may not be seeing it in the intended order. The handwriting appears remarkably consistent throughout most of the manuscript, suggesting either a single scribe or multiple scribes working in the same style. Some researchers have identified slight variations that might indicate different hands, or the same person writing at different times. The script flows confidently, without the hesitation marks or corrections one might expect from someone inventing a cipher on the fly. This confident execution has led some researchers to propose that the text might be copied from another source, rather than being original composition. Chapter 3. The Strange Sections. The Voynich Manuscript divides into several distinct sections, each with its own character and type of illustrations. Researchers have named these sections based on their apparent content, though without being able to read the text, these designations remain speculative. The herbal section comprises the largest portion of the manuscript, containing about 130 pages of plant illustrations. Each page typically shows a single plant, drawn with considerable detail and accompanied by several paragraphs of text. The botanical drawings include roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and sometimes seeds or fruits. The style is naturalistic, suggesting the artist was working from observation rather than pure imagination. Yet here's where the mystery deepens. Despite decades of effort by botanists, only a handful of the plants have been tentatively identified. Some resemble known European herbs, like viola or pansy, but most remain unidentifiable. Several explanations have been proposed for the unidentifiable plants. Perhaps they're extinct species, no longer found in nature. Maybe they're based on plants from a specific region unknown to modern botanists. Some researchers suggest they could be stylized, or symbolic representations rather than literal depictions. The most unsettling possibility is that they're entirely imaginary, which would raise serious questions about the manuscript's purpose. Why create an elaborate herbal filled with fictional plants? The astronomical section contains circular diagrams featuring stars, suns, moons, and zodiacal symbols. Some pages show clear astronomical charts with radiating lines and concentric circles. Others display what appear to be astrolabic designs or cosmological diagrams. This section includes the manuscript's most elaborate fold-out pages, extending to multiple times the normal page width. These fold-outs display complex circular patterns divided into segments, filled with text and small illustrations. The astronomical section suggests the manuscript's creator had interests beyond botany, perhaps in astrology or cosmology, both respectable sciences in the medieval period. The biological section is perhaps the manuscript's strangest. It shows numerous small nude female figures, drawn in a simple, almost crude style, bathing or immersed in interconnected pools and tubes filled with what appears to be liquid. The tubes connect different pools and complex networks. letters, with the women positioned throughout. Some researchers have interpreted these as representations of the female reproductive system. Others see them as depicting spas or baths, possibly relating to health and medicine. Some have proposed alchemical interpretations, with the pools and tubes representing vessels and processes for transforming substances. The biological section remains deeply puzzling, with no clear consensus about its meaning. The cosmological section contains more circular diagrams, some showing what might be islands or castles connected by causeways, others featuring rosette patterns with detailed internal structures. These pages might represent geographical concepts, cosmological schemes, or something entirely different. One famous foldout shows 9 cosmological medallions, circular diagrams arranged in a pattern, each containing stars, text, and various symbols. The meaning and purpose of these designs remain completely opaque. Finally, the pharmaceutical section shows drawings of what appear to be medicinal preparations, jars, bottles, and vessels containing various substances, often with parts of plants emerging from them. Alongside these illustrations are recipes or instructions written in the mysterious script. If this section does indeed describe pharmaceutical preparations, it might be the most practically oriented part of the manuscript, potentially offering clues about its purpose if only we could read it. The stars section, a smaller portion, displays individual stars labeled with text, perhaps representing star names or celestial observations. This section's purpose is easier to guess than most, probably serving as some sort of astronomical reference. What's striking about all these sections is their internal coherence. Each section maintains its own visual logic and thematic consistency. The manuscript doesn't feel random or chaotic. Instead, it presents as a carefully organized work, with each section devoted to a specific topic, following conventions that would make sense to its intended readers. This organization suggests serious purpose, rather than an elaborate joke or purely decorative object. Chapter 4. The Undeciphered Language. The text of the Voynich Manuscript represents one of history's most formidable cryptographic challenges. The script consists of approximately 20 to 30 distinct characters, depending on how one counts variations and ligatures. The characters themselves look vaguely European, with elements that remind viewers of Latin, Greek, or Arabic letters, yet don't match any known alphabet. The overall impression is of a coherent writing system, not random marks or pure invention. Statistical analysis of the text reveals fascinating patterns. The character frequency distribution follows Zipf's law, a principle observed in natural languages, where a small number of words appear very frequently, while most words appear rarely. The manuscript's most common words appear about twice as often as the second most common, 3 times as often as the third most common, and so on. This pattern strongly suggests the text is not random gibberish, but follows linguistic principles similar to real languages. However, other statistical properties seem strange compared to natural languages. The text shows remarkably low entropy, meaning less variety and randomness than expected. Many words share similar patterns, and certain character combinations repeat far more often than in typical languages. The text contains an unusual number of repeated words and phrases, with the same sequences appearing 2 or 3 times in succession. This repetition pattern is rare in natural writing, but might be consistent with certain types of specialized texts, like recipes or instructions with repeated elements. Word length in the manuscript follows an unusual distribution. Most words are relatively short, between 4 and 8 characters, with very few long words. This pattern could suggest an isolating language where most words are independent units, or it might indicate a cipher that breaks text into artificial chunks. The spaces between words appear consistent and deliberate, suggesting they mark genuine word boundaries rather than arbitrary divisions. The text shows minimal variation in character combinations. Certain characters almost always appear in specific positions within words, initial, medial, or final, and certain character pairs occur frequently, while other theoretically possible combinations never appear. This constraint on possible character combinations is unusual, and has led some researchers to propose that the script might be a constructed writing system with specific rules about which letters can follow which others. One of the most intriguing features is the apparent existence of two distinct languages or dialects within the manuscript. Statistical analysis reveals that text in the herbal section has different properties from text in the astronomical or biological sections. The same characters appear, but their frequency and combination patterns differ slightly. This could indicate the manuscript was written by different authors at different times, or discusses different subject matter in ways that affect the underlying language structure. Computer analysis has subjected the manuscript to virtually every known cryptographic technique. Researchers have tried treating it as a substitution cipher, where each character represents a different letter. They've explored transposition ciphers, where letters are rearranged according to a pattern. Polyalphabetic ciphers, where the substitution pattern changes throughout the text, have been tested. Code systems, where entire words are replaced by symbols, have been considered. None of these approaches has yielded readable text in any known language. Modern computational linguists have applied sophisticated algorithms to identify the underlying language if the manuscript is enciphered. They've compared its statistical patterns to hundreds of languages across multiple language families, looking for matches in character frequency, digraph patterns, and word structure. The manuscript has been compared to Romance languages, Germanic languages, Slavic languages, Semitic languages, and many others. While some researchers claim to have found statistical similarities to particular languages, none of these claims has resulted in a successful decipherment that the scholarly community accepts. Chapter 5. Notable Decipherment Attempts. Since Wilfrid Voynich first circulated the manuscript, countless individuals have announced they've cracked the code. Some attempts have been serious scholarly efforts employing rigorous methodology. Others have been amateurish or driven more by enthusiasm than expertise. A few have been deliberate hoaxes. Nearly all have ultimately failed to convince the broader research community. William Romain Newbold, a professor of philosophy at the University of Pennsylvania, made one of the earliest and most elaborate decipherment attempts in the 1920s. Newbold claimed the visible text was meaningless, but microscopic analysis revealed tiny marks he interpreted as the real message written in Greek shorthand. According to Newbold, these marks revealed that Roger Bacon had invented the telescope and microscope 3 centuries before their accepted invention, observing cellular structures and the Andromeda Galaxy. Newbold's work generated considerable excitement, with major newspapers reporting his discoveries. However, his methodology was quickly demolished. John Manley, a cryptographer and medieval scholar at the University of Chicago, demonstrated that Newbold's microscopic marks were merely cracks in the ink, natural artifacts of aging visible in many manuscripts. The supposed Greek shorthand was pure fantasy. Newbold's decipherment taught researchers an important lesson about confirmation bias and seeing what one wants to see. In the 1940s, Joseph Martin Feely proposed that the manuscript was written in a synthetic language, a constructed philosophical language similar to those popular in the 17th century. Such languages attempted to create rational systems, where the structure of words would reveal the nature of things. Feely's theory was interesting but ultimately unpersuasive, partly because the manuscript predates most known constructed languages by 2 centuries. Prescott Currier, a cryptanalyst for the U.S. Navy during World War II, conducted some of the most rigorous analytical work on the manuscript during the 1970s. Rather than attempting a decipherment, Currier focused on statistical analysis, applying techniques used in breaking enemy codes. His work revealed the existence of 2 distinct languages within the manuscript, which researchers now call Currier A and Currier B. He also identified what he called labels, short text strings attached to illustrations that might represent titles or captions. Currier's work didn't crack the code, but provided valuable insights into the manuscript's structure that continued to inform research. Robert Brumbaugh, a philosophy professor at Yale, proposed in the 1970s that the manuscript was a Renaissance forgery created to swindle Emperor Rudolph II. According to Brumbaugh, the forger constructed a cipher that was deliberately unsolvable, filling the manuscript with gibberish disguised as encoded knowledge. This theory became less tenable after the carbon dating proved the manuscript's medieval origin, though some researchers still maintain it could be a medieval hoax. Leo Levitov, in 1987, claimed the manuscript was written in a polyglot oral tongue used by Cathar heretics, an extinct Christian sect from southern France. According to Levitov, the manuscript described Cathar religious rituals, and he provided translations of various passages. His theory generated brief media attention, but was swiftly discredited by scholars who found his methodology fundamentally flawed and his knowledge of Cathar history inaccurate. Gordon Rugg, a computing science lecturer at Keele University, proposed in 2004 that the manuscript might have been created using a card and grill, a Renaissance encryption device consisting of a card with holes that could be placed over a table of syllables to generate text. By moving the grill to different positions, one could create text with statistical properties similar to the Voynich Manuscript. Rugg demonstrated that this method could produce Voynich-like text, suggesting the manuscript might be a hoax. However, critics pointed out that proving something could be a hoax doesn't prove it is one, and the carbon dating indicates the manuscript predates the documented use of cardan grills. In 2014, Stephen Bax, a linguistics professor at the University of Bedfordshire, announced he had identified proper names in the manuscript by comparing plant illustrations with known medieval herbal texts. He claimed to have identified words like Taurus and Centauria alongside zodiacal and botanical illustrations. Bax's approach was methodical, attempting to build a provisional alphabet by identifying known names. While some researchers found his work promising, it hasn't led to broader decipherment, and many of his identifications remain controversial. More recent attempts have employed artificial intelligence and machine learning. In 2018, researchers at the University of Alberta used algorithms to analyze the manuscript's statistical properties, concluding it might be written in Hebrew with letters rearranged by an algorithmic cipher. Their computer-generated translations were grammatically broken and largely nonsensical, failing to convince most experts. Another 2018 study by Ahmet Ardik claimed to have identified the language as Turkish and the manuscript as a guide to women's health. This theory briefly circulated in media reports, but was quickly dismissed by experts who found the proposed translations implausible and disconnected from the illustrations. Each failed decipherment attempts adds to our understanding of what the manuscript isn't, even if we remain uncertain about what it is. These failures also highlight the difficulty of validating claimed decipherments. Without independent confirmation, without the ability to apply a proposed key to generate consistently meaningful text throughout the manuscript, claims remain speculative. The scholarly community has become understandably skeptical, requiring rigorous proof before accepting any new decipherment claim. Chapter 6: The Hoax Theory. Given the manuscript's resistance to decipherment, some researchers have concluded it must be an elaborate hoax, a meaningless fabrication designed to appear meaningful. This theory has several variants, each addressing different aspects of the manuscript's creation and purpose. The strongest argument for the hoax theory is simply that no one has successfully read the manuscript despite over a century of expert effort. Hundreds of professional cryptographers, linguists, and historians have examined it. Computer algorithms have subjected it to analysis impossible in earlier eras. If the manuscript contains a genuine message in any human language, encrypted or otherwise, someone should have cracked it by now. The continued failure suggests there might be nothing there to find. Proponents of the hoax theory point to the text's unusual statistical properties, the low entropy, the high repetition rate, the constrained character combinations. All these features could indicate text generated by a simple algorithm rather than natural writing. Medieval or Renaissance forgers, attempting to create a mysterious manuscript to sell at high price, might have used a mechanical method to produce authentic-looking but meaningless text. One proposed method involves tables of syllables or word parts that could be combined according to rules to generate text. By creating lists of prefixes, stems, and suffixes, then combining them in various ways, a forger could fill pages with flowing text that looks linguistic but carries no meaning. The card and grill method proposed by Gordon Rugg represents one such approach. Another possibility is a verbose cipher, where each letter of a real message is encoded as a whole word from a predetermined list, creating lengthy text with unusual repetition patterns. The unidentifiable plants present another argument for hoax. If the botanical section is supposed to be an herbal, why don't the plants match any known species? A genuine scientific or medical manuscript would presumably illustrate real plants with actual properties. The fact that most plants cannot be identified suggests they might be imaginary, invented by someone creating a convincing-looking but ultimately false document. However, the hoax theory faces significant challenges. First, creating the manuscript would have required enormous effort and expense. The high-quality vellum, the careful illustrations, the hundreds of pages of consistent text, all represent a substantial investment. Medieval and Renaissance forgers certainly existed, but they typically created fake documents of great men, spurious papal bulls, or forged title deeds, documents with clear monetary or political value. The Voynich Manuscript, if a hoax, would be unusual in its complexity and the apparent lack of clear purpose. Second, the carbon dating indicates creation in the early 15th century, a time when such an elaborate cryptographic or linguistic hoax would have been extraordinarily unusual. The sophisticated understanding of how to create convincing-looking nonsense that mimics natural language would have been rare. While simple ciphers and codes existed, the kind of knowledge needed to generate text with properties resembling natural language, while actually being meaningless, would have been exceptional. Third, if the manuscript is a hoax, it's remarkably consistent. The same script appears throughout, maintaining its character for hundreds of pages. The different sections show thematic coherence. The illustrations, while sometimes strange, follow logical organizational principles. Creating such a consistent fake, one that holds up to modern scrutiny, would have required not just effort, but genuine intelligence and planning. Fourth, the manuscript's provenance suggests it was valued highly even in the 17th century. Emperor Rudolf II allegedly paid 600 gold ducats for it, an enormous sum. While Rudolf was known for collecting unusual objects and was certainly capable of being deceived, the people around him included sophisticated scholars who had examined many manuscripts. If the Voynich manuscript was obviously fake, someone at Rudolf's court should have recognized it. The hoax theory also must explain why someone would create such a document. If the goal was to defraud Rudolf II, the forger succeeded spectacularly. But then what? The manuscript doesn't make grandiose claims about its content. It doesn't come with a sales pitch about containing secrets of immortality or formulas for gold. It simply exists, mysterious but not obviously promising impossible knowledge. This restraint is unusual for a forgery. Some researchers propose a middle position. Perhaps the manuscript is genuine in the sense of being created with serious intent, but the language or cipher system is so idiosyncratic or poorly executed that it's effectively unreadable. Maybe the author created a private writing system for encoding knowledge, but made it so complex or inconsistent that even with the key, decipherment would be extremely difficult. In this view, the manuscript isn't a deliberate hoax, but might as well be, since it's functionally meaningless to anyone except possibly its creator. Chapter 7. Alternative Theories. Beyond straightforward decipherment attempts and the hoax theory lie numerous alternative explanations for the manuscript's mysterious nature. These theories range from plausible to wildly speculative, each attempting to explain why the manuscript has resisted all attempts at comprehension. One intriguing possibility is that the manuscript is written in an extinct or undocumented language. Historical linguistics recognizes that many languages have disappeared without trace, spoken by communities that left no written records, or whose records haven't survived. If the Voynich manuscript represents one such language, its first and only substantial written example, decipherment would be nearly impossible without a bilingual text or extensive context clues. However, this theory faces the challenge of explaining how such a language could produce a sophisticated technical manuscript while leaving no other trace in the historical record. The constructed language theory proposes that the manuscript is written in an artificial language invented by its author. Medieval scholars, particularly those interested in philosophy and mysticism, sometimes created new languages for specific purposes. These might be philosophical languages designed to express ideas more precisely than natural languages, or mystical languages intended for religious or magical purposes. The Voynich manuscript might represent an early example of such linguistic experimentation. This theory has the advantage of explaining why the language doesn't match any known tongue, but it struggles to explain why someone would create an entire manuscript in a language only they understood, without providing any key or explanation. Several researchers have proposed that the manuscript is written in a known language, but using an undeciphered shorthand system. Medieval scribes developed various shorthand notations for rapid writing, and many of these systems are poorly documented or lost. If the Voynich manuscript employs an unusual shorthand for Latin, Italian, German, or another European language, it might remain unreadable until someone discovers how the shorthand works. This theory accounts for the manuscript's linguistic-seeming properties, while explaining the failure of linguistic analysis to identify the underlying language. The glossolalia, or speaking in tongues theory, suggests the manuscript might record the ecstatic utterances of a religious mystic or group of mystics. Some Christian mystical traditions involved speaking in unknown tongues, believed to be direct communication from God or angelic languages. If someone carefully transcribed such utterances and illustrated them with visionary images, the result might resemble the Voynich manuscript. This theory is difficult to prove or disprove, but would explain the manuscript's language-like properties combined with its resistance to decipherment. The encryption theory remains popular, despite numerous failed attempts to crack the code. Perhaps the manuscript employs a cipher so sophisticated that it has defeated all modern attempts at cryptanalysis. This would require remarkably advanced cryptographic knowledge for the 15th century, but not impossibly so. Medieval scholars did develop complex ciphers for diplomatic and religious purposes. Maybe the Voynich cipher is simply better than any that survived in documented form. However, modern cryptographic techniques are powerful, and the idea that a medieval cipher could resist them is increasingly difficult to maintain. Some researchers propose the manuscript might be an example of asemic writing without semantic content, created for purely aesthetic or meditative purposes. Some artistic and spiritual traditions use the act of writing itself as meditation or decoration, producing text-like marks that carry no linguistic meaning. Medieval monasteries did produce elaborately decorated manuscripts where visual beauty sometimes superseded readable text. However, the Voynich manuscript's consistent script and apparent organization argue against purely aesthetic creation. The medical or pharmaceutical interpretation suggests the manuscript might be a practical guide to medicine, herbalism, or pharmacy, written in specialized jargon, or code, to protect trade secrets. Medieval medical practitioners sometimes encoded their knowledge to maintain professional monopolies. The manuscript's herbal and pharmaceutical sections support this interpretation. However, this theory must explain why the code is so difficult that it has defeated modern analysis and why the plants are largely unidentifiable. Alchemical theories propose the manuscript describes chemical or metallurgical processes disguised as botanical and astronomical material. Alchemists regularly used symbolic language and obscure terminology to conceal their work from the uninitiated. The biological section's pools and tubes might represent alchemical vessels and processes rather than literal baths. The plants could symbolize chemical substances rather than actual botanicals. This interpretation has appeal given the manuscript's probable date and Rudolf II's interest in alchemy, but it remains speculative without confirming translations. Some researchers suggest the manuscript might be an astrological or divinatory text, encoding predictions, procedures, or mystical knowledge. The astronomical sections clearly show astrological interest, and medieval astrology employed complex systems that might appear obscure to modern viewers. The women in the biological section might represent planetary influences or astrological houses rather than literal bathing scenes. This theory aligns with the manuscript's visual content, but doesn't explain the specific nature of the script. More speculative theories abound. Some have proposed the manuscript describes now extinct medical practices from Central Asia or the Middle East, brought to Europe by travelers. Others suggest it might be connected to the Knights Templar, the Cathars, or other medieval groups with reputations for secret knowledge. A few theorists have even proposed extraterrestrial origins, though such claims lack any serious evidential basis. Each alternative theory highlights different aspects of the manuscript while struggling to account for the complete picture. The most satisfying explanation would need to address the text's statistical properties, the unidentifiable illustrations, the apparent organization and purpose, the manuscript's medieval origin, and its resistance to decipherment. No theory yet proposed accomplishes all of this convincingly. Chapter 8 Modern Scientific Analysis 21st Century Technology has opened new avenues for investigating the Voynich manuscript. Researchers now employ sophisticated imaging techniques, computational analysis, and interdisciplinary collaboration to extract information impossible to obtain through traditional manuscript study. Multispectral imaging has revealed previously invisible features. By photographing the manuscript under different wavelengths of light, from ultraviolet through visible to infrared, researchers can see beneath surface layers, reveal faded text, and detect pigment compositions. This technique confirmed the presence of Jacobus Horsicky's signature under ultraviolet light, and has revealed corrections and erasures invisible to the naked eye. These findings suggest the manuscript underwent editing, with the author or scribe making changes during composition. This contradicts the theory that the text was mechanically generated without meaning, since meaningless text, presumably, wouldn't require correction. X-ray fluorescence. Spectroscopy analyzes the elemental composition of pigments and inks without damaging the manuscript. This technique has confirmed that the materials used are consistent with medieval European manufacture, with no anachronistic elements that might suggest later fabrication. The pigments match those commonly available in the early 15th century, and their application shows techniques typical of medieval illuminators. Digital analysis of the handwriting has attempted to determine whether one or multiple scribes created the manuscript. This involves measuring subtle characteristics like letter slant, stroke weight, and spacing consistency. Results remain inconclusive, with some researchers arguing for a single scribe and others detecting variations suggesting multiple hands, or a single scribe working over an extended period with changing tools or techniques. Computational linguists have applied natural language processing algorithms to analyze the text's structure. These programs, originally developed to process and understand human languages, can identify patterns invisible to human readers. They've confirmed that the manuscript's text has statistical properties resembling natural language more than random text or simple ciphers. The presence of distinct dialects or registers, what Currier identified as different languages, has been confirmed through machine learning algorithms that cluster text sections based on their statistical properties. Network analysis treats the manuscript as a graph, with characters as nodes and their relationships as edges. This approach reveals structural patterns in how characters combine and sequence. Such analysis shows the manuscript's text has a network structure intermediate between random combinations and the complex networks typical of natural languages. This finding is consistent with either a sophisticated artificial language or a real language written in an unusual script. Entropy analysis measures the information content and predictability of text. Natural languages have characteristic entropy levels, reflecting the balance between efficient communication and redundancy that prevents misunderstanding. The Voynich manuscript's entropy is lower than most natural languages, but higher than simple artificial systems. This could indicate either a language with unusual properties or a cipher that compresses information in specific ways. Machine translation algorithms, which successfully translate between modern languages, have been applied to the manuscript. These systems learn linguistic patterns from large text corpora, then apply those patterns to new texts. When applied to the Voynich manuscript, they produce output in various languages, but the results are largely incoherent, suggesting either that the manuscript's language is too different from those in the training data, or that it doesn't encode language in a straightforward way. Botanical analysis has employed modern plant identification databases and techniques. High-resolution images of the plant illustrations have been compared to thousands of botanical drawings and photographs. Computer vision algorithms identify structural features like leaf patterns, root systems, and flower morphology. Despite this technological approach, most plants remain unidentified. A few possible matches have been proposed, including various species from European and Mediterranean flora, but consensus identifications are rare. Some researchers suggest the plants might be composites, combining features from multiple real species, or stylized representations that exaggerate certain characteristics while omitting others. Astronomical analysis has examined the zodiacal and cosmological diagrams for correspondence with known astronomical traditions. Some symbols and structures resemble medieval European astrology, but others are harder to place. Researchers have attempted to determine whether the astronomical diagrams represent observations, predictions, or purely symbolic material. The presence of zodiacal symbols suggests familiarity with standard astrological traditions, but the specific arrangements and associated text remain mysterious. Collaborative research has brought together specialists from diverse fields: cryptographers, linguists, historians, Art historians, botanists, astronomers, and computer scientists have pooled their expertise. Online communities have formed, allowing amateur enthusiasts to contribute alongside professionals. The manuscript has been fully digitized and made available online, allowing anyone with internet access to examine it closely. This democratization of research has generated numerous new theories and approaches, though it has also produced a flood of speculative ideas lacking rigorous foundation. Despite all these technological advances, the manuscript keeps its secrets. Each new analytical technique reveals interesting details, but not the breakthrough that would unlock the text. The multispectral imaging shows corrections, but doesn't explain the underlying language. The computational analysis reveals structure, but doesn't yield translations. The botanical databases identify few plants. The astronomical analysis finds familiar symbols in unfamiliar contexts. Modern science has confirmed the manuscript's medieval origin, its material authenticity, and its internal coherence, but the central mystery remains unsolved. Chapter 9: Cultural Impact and Continuing Mystery. The Voynich Manuscript has transcended academic circles to become a cultural phenomenon, inspiring novels, video games, music, and endless speculation. Its mysterious nature makes it perfect fodder for creative imagination and conspiracy theories alike. Numerous novels have incorporated the manuscript. Writers use it as a plot device, imagining what secrets it might contain. In these fictions, the manuscript reveals everything from ancient medical knowledge to mystical powers, from historical conspiracies to alien contact. The manuscript appears in puzzle games and adventure games, challenging players to decipher its code. Musicians have composed pieces inspired by its mysterious beauty. Artists create works responding to its strange illustrations. The manuscript has become a symbol of ultimate mystery, the question that might never be answered. The internet age has dramatically expanded interest in the manuscript. Websites, discussion forums, and social media groups dedicated to solving the mystery attract thousands of participants. Amateur cryptographers present new theories regularly. Each claims to have found the key that eluded all previous researchers. Some of these theories are sophisticated and well argued. Most are quickly shown to be flawed. A few are obvious nonsense, but their proponents defend them passionately. This democratic participation is both positive and challenging. It brings diverse perspectives and fresh ideas, but it also generates noise that can obscure serious research. The manuscript has spawned a small cottage industry of books, documentaries, and lectures. Publishers release new studies regularly, each promising new insights. Documentary filmmakers produce episodes examining the mystery from various angles. University professors include the manuscript in courses on cryptography, medieval history, and unsolved mysteries. The manuscript has educational value beyond its content, teaching students about research methodology, critical thinking, and the limits of knowledge. Conspiracy theories naturally cluster around such an enigmatic object. Some theorists connect it to secret societies, claiming it contains the hidden wisdom of the Templars, the Rosicrucians, or other esoteric groups. Others propose it's a government secret, perhaps containing information about lost technologies or historical events that powerful institutions want suppressed. A few claim it's evidence of time travelers or extraterrestrial visitors. These theories typically lack evidential support, but persist because the manuscript's genuine mystery leaves space for imaginative speculation. The manuscript resides today at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, catalogued as MS 408. Yale acquired it in 1969 when Hans Kraus, a rare book dealer who purchased it from the Voynich estate, donated it after failing to find a buyer at his asking price of $160,000. The university has been an excellent steward, preserving the manuscript while making it accessible to researchers. In 2004, Yale allowed complete digital photography, and these high-resolution images are now freely available online, ensuring that anyone interested can examine every page in detail. The ongoing mystery represents something important about human knowledge and its limits. We live in an age where information seems infinitely accessible. Search engines answer questions in seconds. Experts exist for every conceivable topic. Sophisticated instruments probe the depths of space and the interior of atoms. Yet here is a 600-year-old book that no one can read. It sits in a library, available for study, thoroughly photographed and analyzed, and it keeps its secrets. This stubborn mystery serves as a humbling reminder. Despite our technological power and accumulated knowledge, some questions remain unanswered. The manuscript teaches patience, intellectual humility, and the value of admitting uncertainty. It demonstrates that progress in understanding isn't always linear or guaranteed. Sometimes problems resist solution, not because we lack intelligence or tools, but because the problem itself has intrinsic qualities that make it extraordinarily difficult. The manuscript also highlights the fragility of knowledge transmission. If the manuscript does contain meaningful information, that information is effectively lost because the key to accessing it disappeared. This raises questions about how we preserve knowledge for the future. What happens to information stored in formats that become obsolete? How do we ensure that important knowledge remains accessible across centuries? The Voynich Manuscript, physically preserved but intellectually inaccessible, exemplifies this challenge. Chapter 10: What We Know and Don't Know. After more than a century of intensive study, what can we say with confidence about the Voynich Manuscript? And what remains genuinely mysterious? We know the manuscript dates to the early 15th century, between 1404 and 1438, based on radiocarbon dating of the vellum. This physical fact is as certain as such dating can be. We know it originated in Europe, most likely somewhere in Italy or the surrounding region. Based on the watermarks and materials analysis, we know it passed through several hands, including Jacobus Horsicki de Tepanek, Johannes Marcus Marci, and Athanasius Kircher, before disappearing into the Jesuit archives for 2 centuries. We know the manuscript is organized into distinct sections with different illustrative themes: botanical, astronomical, biological, cosmological, pharmaceutical, and stellar. This organization isn't random, but follows a logical pattern suggesting purposeful composition. We know the script is consistent throughout most of the manuscript, written confidently without significant hesitation or uncertainty marks. We know the text follows certain linguistic-like patterns, including character frequency distributions similar to natural languages and consistent word spacing. We know the illustrations, while sometimes strange, were drawn with care and often considerable skill. The botanical illustrations show detailed observation of plant structures. The astronomical diagrams follow recognizable traditions. Even the puzzling biological section with its bathing figures is executed with consistency and attention to detail. We know the materials used. The vellum, ink, and pigments are all appropriate for the manuscript's date and probable location of origin. We know the manuscript has been edited. Corrections, erasures, and alterations visible under multispectral imaging indicate that someone reviewed and revised the text. This suggests the content mattered to its creator, arguing against theories of pure gibberish or random generation. We know the manuscript was valued highly in the 17th century, commanding an extraordinary price from Emperor Rudolf II. But the list of what we don't know is longer and more frustrating. We don't know who created the manuscript or commissioned its creation. No signature or attribution appears anywhere in the volume. The confident handwriting suggests someone with scribal training, but their identity remains unknown. We don't know where exactly it was created, though Italy seems probable. We don't know its purpose. Was it medical, alchemical, astronomical, religious, philosophical, educational? We have theories, but no proof. We don't know what language, if any, the text represents. Despite extensive linguistic analysis, no convincing identification has emerged. We don't know if the text is enciphered, and if so, what system was used. We don't know if the text is meaningful at all, or whether it might be elaborate nonsense designed to appear meaningful. We don't know whether the current page order is original, or whether someone rearranged or removed pages at some point in the manuscript's history. We don't know what most of the plants are. Hundreds of botanical illustrations remain unidentified despite careful comparison with known species. We don't know what the biological section represents. Are those women in baths? Cells in the body? Alchemical processes? Something else entirely? We don't know the significance of the astronomical diagrams or what system of cosmology they represent. We don't know how the manuscript came to be in Rudolf II's possession, or whether the attribution to Roger Bacon has any validity. We don't know why it was sent to Kircher, or whether he made any attempt to decipher it. We don't know how many people between the 15th and 17th centuries could read it, or whether anyone after its creation ever successfully understood its contents. Perhaps most fundamentally, we don't know whether the manuscript is knowable. Is there actually something to discover, some message or knowledge encoded in these pages? Or have we been pursuing a phantom? This epistemological question haunts all research on the manuscript. At what point does continued failure to decipher something justify concluding there's nothing there to decipher? Or should we persist, assuming that the answer exists and we simply haven't found the right approach? The manuscript occupies a peculiar space in human knowledge. It's not unknown in the sense of being lost or inaccessible. Every page has been photographed, digitized, and made available. Thousands of people have examined it. It's one of the most studied medieval manuscripts in existence, yet in another sense, it remains profoundly unknown. Its contents, purpose, and meaning are as mysterious as if it still lay hidden in an archive, unexamined and unread. Chapter 11. Lessons from the Mystery. The Voynich Manuscript offers lessons extending beyond cryptography or medieval studies. Its enduring mystery teaches us about knowledge, uncertainty, and the human drive to understand. First, it demonstrates the importance of context in comprehension. We can analyze the manuscript's statistical properties, count its characters, map its word frequencies, and identify patterns. But without contextual knowledge, who wrote it, where, when, why, for whom, these patterns don't yield meaning. This has implications for understanding any complex system. Data alone isn't enough. We need framework and context to transform data into information and information into understanding. The manuscript also illustrates how preconceptions shape interpretation. Researchers approaching the manuscript with different assumptions. It's a cipher, it's a natural language, it's gibberish, apply different analytical methods, and reach different conclusions. Each sees what their framework allows them to see. This isn't necessarily bad. Different approaches can reveal different aspects of truth, but it reminds us that our tools and assumptions shape what we can discover. The failure of expertise in solving the manuscript is humbling. Some of history's finest cryptographers, linguists, and scholars have examined these pages. Modern computers have applied algorithms that can break codes and translate languages with remarkable success, yet the manuscript resists. This suggests either that the problem is exceptionally difficult, perhaps uniquely so, or that we're asking the wrong questions. Sometimes expert knowledge isn't enough. Sometimes problems require not just intelligence and tools, but luck, inspiration, or a perspective that hasn't yet been tried. The manuscript demonstrates the difference between information and meaning. The pages contain information, marks on vellum arranged in patterns, but information becomes meaningful only when it connects to a broader context of understanding. The manuscript might contain the same words as a medieval medical text, but without the key to connect its marks to sounds, concepts, and ideas, it remains information without accessible meaning. This has implications for how we think about communication and knowledge preservation. The collective effort to solve the manuscript shows how modern scholarship works. Researchers share findings, build on each other's work, and critique proposed solutions. The digitization and open access to the manuscript demonstrate how technology can democratize research, allowing anyone with interest to contribute. Yet it also shows the challenges of this openness, separating rigorous analysis from speculation, evaluating claims from researchers with varying levels of expertise, and building consensus in a field where anyone can participate. The manuscript teaches patience and persistence. Over a century of effort has produced substantial knowledge about the manuscript's physical properties, provenance, and statistical characteristics. Even though the central mystery remains, this incremental progress matters. Each failed decipherment attempt eliminates possibilities and refines our understanding. Each new analytical technique reveals details invisible before. The solution, if one exists, might emerge from accumulating these small insights rather than a single brilliant breakthrough. The manuscript also teaches us to live with uncertainty. Not every question has an answer, at least not an answer we can currently access. This is uncomfortable for minds trained to seek solutions and closure. We want to know what the manuscript says, who wrote it, and why. The inability to answer these questions creates a kind of intellectual itch we cannot scratch. Learning to accept this uncertainty, to acknowledge the limits of our understanding while continuing to pursue knowledge, is valuable. The phenomenon of Voynich research reveals much about human curiosity. Why do people care about this manuscript? It's not going to change the world if deciphered. It probably doesn't contain revolutionary scientific knowledge or secrets that will transform society. Yet people devote careers to studying it. Amateurs spend thousands of hours on decipherment attempts. Why? Because humans are driven to solve puzzles, to understand mysteries, to bring order to chaos. The manuscript represents pure intellectual challenge, a problem that resists solution and therefore becomes irresistible. The manuscript also serves as a mirror, reflecting back what we bring to it. Those interested in alchemy see alchemical symbolism, botanists see plants, cryptographers see ciphers, artists see aesthetic beauty, conspiracy theorists see hidden secrets. The manuscript's ambiguity allows it to be many things to many people. This multivalence is part of its fascination, and also part of why it resists definitive interpretation. Without clear meaning, it accommodates multiple interpretations, none definitively provable or disprovable. Chapter 12. The Future of Voynich Research. What does the future hold for Voynich manuscript research? Will the mystery ever be solved, or will it remain an eternal enigma? Technological advances offer hope. Artificial intelligence and machine learning continue to evolve rapidly. Future algorithms might identify patterns invisible to current analysis. Quantum computing, as it develops, might enable cryptanalysis approaches impossible with classical computers. New imaging technologies might reveal details in the manuscript not yet visible, perhaps faint traces of earlier drafts, or corrections that could provide crucial context. Interdisciplinary collaboration will likely increase. The manuscript's complexity requires expertise from multiple domains: linguistics, history, art history, botany, astronomy, cryptography, and computer science. Future research teams might assemble more diverse specialists, bringing together perspectives that haven't yet been combined. Collaborative online platforms might enable global cooperation, pooling knowledge from researchers worldwide. Historical research might uncover new contextual information. Archives continue to be digitized and cataloged. Perhaps somewhere in a European library or ecclesiastical archive lies a document that mentions the Voynich manuscript, describes its contents, or even provides a key to its script. Such discoveries are rare, but not impossible. The letter from Marcy to Kircher survived hidden in the manuscript itself. What other documents might exist, waiting to be found? The growing field of computational linguistics might develop new approaches. As researchers better understand the statistical properties of languages and how meaning emerges from symbolic systems, they might devise new tests to apply to the manuscript. Perhaps future linguistics will reveal that the manuscript's text properties match a type of language or coding system not yet theorized. Citizen science might play an increasing role. Online platforms allow thousands of people to contribute to research projects. Future initiatives might crowdsource specific aspects of Voynich research using distributed human intelligence to examine details or test hypotheses. The collective intelligence of many observers might spot patterns that individual researchers miss. However, we must also consider the possibility that the manuscript will never be read. Perhaps the key to understanding it is genuinely lost. If it's written in a private cipher or constructed language known only to its creator, and if no documentation of that cipher or language survives, then decipherment might be impossible in principle, not just in practice. The manuscript would remain forever a beautiful artifact whose meaning has been erased by time. Even if never deciphered, the manuscript retains value. It serves as a case study in the limits of knowledge. It reminds us that history is fragmentary, that much of the past is lost or inaccessible. It demonstrates the importance of preserving not just artifacts, but also the context and knowledge needed to understand them. A book without a key to read it is just decorated vellum, materially preserved but intellectually lost. The manuscript also has aesthetic and cultural value independent of its meaning. The illustrations are beautiful. The script is visually appealing. The manuscript as object, as artifact, has worth beyond any message it might contain. Museums preserve art without needing to decode hidden meanings. The Voynich manuscript can be appreciated similarly as a medieval creation of mysterious beauty. Future researchers will likely continue to approach the manuscript with the same mix of rigorous analysis and speculative imagination that has characterized the past century of study. New theories will be proposed, some will be carefully argued and tested, others will be flights of fancy. The manuscript will continue to inspire, frustrate, and fascinate. It will feature in new novels, games, and artworks. Documentaries will revisit the mystery for new generations. The cycle will continue. Perhaps the manuscript's greatest legacy is not what it says, but what it represents. The enduring human encounter with mystery, the drive to understand, and the graceful acceptance of what cannot yet be known. In an age of instant information and easy answers, the Voynich Manuscript stands as a monument to complexity, ambiguity, and the limits of certainty. Conclusion: an unfinished story. The Voynich Manuscript's story has no ending, at least, not yet. It begins in mystery, in the early 15th century, when an unknown author filled vellum pages with strange script and stranger illustrations. It continues through centuries of obscurity, passing through hands we can partially trace, from its unknown creator to Rudolph II's court, through scholars and collectors, into archives and libraries, finally arriving at Yale University, where it resides today. The modern chapter of the story begins with Wilfrid Voynich's rediscovery and spans over a century of intensive study. Hundreds of researchers have contributed their expertise. Technological advances have revealed aspects of the manuscript invisible to earlier generations. Carbon dating established its medieval origin. Digital analysis confirmed its linguistic-like properties. Multispectral imaging revealed hidden details, yet the core mystery persists. We stand today with more information about the manuscript than ever before, but no closer to reading it than Voynich was in 1912. We know its age, can analyze its statistical properties, have cataloged its illustrations, and traced parts of its history, but we cannot read its text, identify most of its plants, or definitively explain its purpose. The manuscript has defeated every attempt to crack its code, if code it is. This failure, if we can call it that, is itself instructive. It reminds us that knowledge has limits, that some questions resist answering, that uncertainty is a permanent condition of human understanding. It teaches humility in the face of the unknown. It demonstrates that despite our technological sophistication and accumulated learning, mysteries remain. The manuscript will continue to attract researchers. New generations will bring fresh perspectives, novel techniques, and different questions. Perhaps one day someone will find the key. A chance discovery in an archive might reveal the manuscript's purpose. A breakthrough in computational linguistics might unlock its language. An inspired amateur might see what professionals missed. Or perhaps artificial intelligence, advancing beyond human patterns of thought, will discern meaning where we see only mystery. Or perhaps not. Perhaps the manuscript will remain forever unread, its secrets lost to time. If so, it will continue to serve a different purpose, as a beautiful enigma, a puzzle without solution, a reminder that not all stories end with answers. It will remain a monument to human curiosity and persistence, to the drive to understand even when understanding seems impossible. The Voynich Manuscript is many things: a medieval book, a cryptographic puzzle, a botanical mystery, an art object, a cultural phenomenon. It's a question that has generated countless answers, none satisfying. It's a blank screen, onto which researchers and enthusiasts project their theories and dreams. It's a genuine mystery in an age when genuine mysteries are rare. And so the story continues, unfinished. Researchers return to the manuscript, examining it again with new tools and new ideas. Amateurs propose fresh theories. The digitized images circulate online, inviting new viewers to try their hand at solving the puzzle. The manuscript waits patiently at Yale, its vellum pages slowly aging, its mysterious script as inscrutable as ever. Perhaps that's appropriate. Some stories shouldn't end. Some mysteries should remain mysterious. Some questions should stay unanswered, at least for now, reminding us that the universe still holds secrets, that human knowledge remains incomplete, that wonder and curiosity have no expiration date. The Voynich Manuscript endures, beautiful, mysterious, unreadable, compelling. It challenges us to think harder, look closer, imagine boldly. It frustrates our desire for answers, while rewarding our appreciation of mystery. It refuses to yield its secrets while offering endless fascination. It stands as perhaps the world's most perfect embodiment of the unknown, the knowable that remains unknown, the readable that cannot be read, the meaningful that resists meaning. And so we continue to study it, to theorize about it, to dream of the day when someone finally cracks the code, and the Voynich Manuscript surrenders its secrets. Until then, it remains what it has been for over a century. The world's most uncrackable code, the mystery that will not be solved, the question without an answer, the book that cannot be read. Perhaps that's exactly what it was always meant to be.